Live long and prosper.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Shut up and take my money.
By Grabthar's hammer, what a saving.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
X never, ever marks the spot.
Winter is coming. You're a wizard, Harry.
Stay a while and listen.
Hey, old Kermit the Frog here.
Bow ties are cool.
So say we all.
This is a Play on Nerds. Welcome to episode 194 of A Play on Nerds. I'm Jarman.
And I'm Steve.
And we are going to have an awesome episode today full of spiders. So
Spiders everywhere.
If you have arachnophobia, this is not the episode for you, because in honor of the release of the movie Sting, which I know you're also anticipating with bated breath.
Comedy arachnid sensation.
That's right. We're going to talk about another spider-centered film that's just another wonderful gem in cinema history, Seven Guardians of the Tomb.
That's right. That Kelsey Grammer classic that everyone's talking about.
From many years ago.
It's not just a few years ago.
Just a few years ago. Yeah, it's very relevant right now. Everyone's talking about it.
It's coming back. We're talking about it.
So yeah, stick around for that. But before we get to that, Steve, what have you been up to since we last recorded? For us, it's been a while.
Well, yeah, we had a bit of a break, which is good because in the first week that we were off, I got a little sick and I didn't get super congested. I didn't get super coffee, but for whatever reason, my voice just went. Just went. I sounded like a cartoon dog for like 3 days. And I've never had a sickness do that before. It was crazy. But
you get bronchitis all the time and everything.
Yeah, back when I was a kid, I did.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those like just gone, voice gone. The kids had their spring break, which is good. I took a few days off. That's how I do time off now, is you just time it to when children have off.
Smart.
On the first Thursday, we took Dilly to a nice doctor's office where he got to play with some toys and get observed. And we officially got his autism diagnosis.
Oh, gotcha.
Which means now we get to start filling out paperwork and meeting with people to get him in assistance programs. And we get signed up for Medicaid and stuff because of the diagnosis. So it's cool. We're finally going to get all the stuff we need. And the goal is to have everything in place for when he starts kindergarten.
And so he's on the spectrum, but you don't know exactly where just yet until he gets older.
No, he's a level 2. That's what we're to, level 2 autistic. But really the levels are just, from what we understand, are mostly measures of the level of support.
Okay.
The kid will need.
So 1 being the lowest and then 2
being lowest, 2. And then 3 is like severe, will need consistent, severe support.
Gotcha.
For always. But for what it's sort of, as I can tell, it's a measurement of what like benefits you're entitled to.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And get him the support he needs.
Exactly. Once again, we just want things in place by the time he gets to kindergarten.
Yeah. I'm so thankful we live in today's society as opposed to when we grew up and there wasn't any of these systems in place. And then,
even 10 years ago, the language around autism wasn't fully formed, let alone 20 years ago when we were in school.
Oh, exactly. It's just like everyone was given medication for like ADD and that was it, like they couldn't figure it out.
And we had that was the beginning of spring break. We had some really big high flung plans, but the entire spring break got rained out.
Oh, that sucks.
With the exception of one day, but that one day was Easter. So it's not like we could go do anything. We needed to go do Easter family stuff. But because of that, we took the kids to see some movies. We went and saw Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Nice.
And Godzilla X Kong.
Ooh.
Part of Dilly getting his autism diagnosis is that the doc basically was like, so the good news is he doesn't have an additional sensory issue. Because like audio sensory issues and autism like to hang out as friends. Yeah. But he's like, he doesn't really have that, which explains why Dilly is fine with loud noises, but isn't great when it's because of crowds.
Okay.
But because of that, we're like, we can just take him to movies. We don't have to care really. Like we always kind of were afraid that he was going to freak out, but now we know, he doesn't have a sensory thing.
Nice.
So we took him to some loud ass movies to sell.
So Godzilla versus Kong wasn't too scary for them?
No, my kids are ironclad. I'm not worried about them. Both movies were just okay. Both movies were overcrowded money grabs.
That makes sense.
Had too many people and things to look at a given time. There was a point in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire where I looked and I was like, why does this look so weird? And it's because they were trying to frame like 13 characters at the same time. They were trying to focus on 13 characters in this weird elaborate setup. And I was like, what is happening right now? Oh, they're trying to show how many people are in this movie.
Like Ghostbusters Endgame.
It was like the end of Endgame, but with like odd Ghostbusters people for some reason. And then back to work, Easter, low key at my parents' place, baskets, eggs, the whole deal. And then we had some fun. I came home from work last weekend to a notice from a lawyer in our mailbox. And it turns out that in Pennsylvania, in Allegheny County, at least, anybody can appeal to Allegheny County Board of something to have a property's value reassessed.
Interesting.
And so our school district, our children's school district, Riverview District, has appealed to Allegheny County to have our home reassessed so that they can tax us more money.
And that's like everybody in your neighborhood, or they just targeted you in particular?
So I felt I was like, oh my God, I need to lawyer up, blah, blah, blah. Like I went into defensive and started looking it up. And this is like super common. It literally is free to do. And it happens to 30,000 people in Allegheny County.
Oh my
every year.
gosh.
So basically, once you go above some threshold, and apparently it happens all the time the first year after you buy a house. So it's going to mean about 2,000 more in taxes a year, probably. We looked at lawyering up, but the cost of the lawyer versus what they estimated they could save us would take 2 to 3 years to pay off. And there's nothing to stop the county from doing this again next year.
That's lovely.
And so it was just one of those like, all right, if it's not worth paying the lawyer, then we're not. We'll go to the hearing and we'll get the new assessment.
I just keep getting more and more reasons to not buy a house and just rent forever.
Well, luckily ours is like a marginal amount of growth. You know, we paid above rate for it. In fact, we are probably the people that brought this upon ourselves. But I read a lot of things that like, this is the dark part of the housing boom that no one talks about for homeowners is you have these people that bought a home for $200,000 and 3 years later it's worth $450,000. Well, guess what? They're getting taxed on a $450,000 home.
Yeah, you didn't sign up for that part.
They're not getting taxed on a $200,000 home they paid for.
It's like when Oprah gave away all those free cars and all people had to pay taxes on them.
Yeah, a lot of people ended up not taking them because they were going to have to pay like, I think $3,000 or $4,000 in tax.
Exactly.
But yeah, so that's fun. We got a hearing set up that we get to go to via phone call.
Nice.
That's how informal this is. It's done over the phone.
And here, pay us more money.
And then we went to the Home Depot and they were having a very good sale. So we bought a new refrigerator.
Woo.
And it's like a big, real family-sized refrigerator. The thing boasted that it is the largest size you can get before you go to like industrial. Like before you go to something you find in a kitchen at a restaurant is ours.
America.
Well, really, we then went and just made the Costco run of all Costco runs, and it was so spectacular.
That's what I always see, like when I watched International House Hunters, was like all these different countries, like everyone has smaller fridges than we do. We have the biggest fridges in the world, it seems like, for homes. Like, and I love it. I'm like, I could not live without a big fridge. Like people, I don't know how they manage in other countries, but it's wonderful.
Well, part of our agreement, though, is that because we're doing that, we're going to try to do fresh veggie like 2 to 3 times a week.
Hey, good idea.
So get away from frozen. Yeah.
Yeah. You have more space for it now.
Oh, and I'm the last update before we switch over to you, which is going to be ultimately more exciting. I'm right now 25 days into a 30-day kettlebell thing.
Yeah.
That I've done all 25 days.
Heck yeah.
And then I'm walking a minimum, with the exception of one day when I was sick, I'm walking a minimum of 2 miles per day. Most of them closer to 3.
You feeling the difference?
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like, what's the thing? I feel like I'm standing up straighter, but I'm not sure. I feel like my tummy's pulling in a little bit, but I honestly don't know. It's one of those things. I haven't had that big physical moment of like, oh yeah, I have.
The biggest thing I got when I got in better shape a couple of times in my life was that noticing how much easier it was to get up and get out of bed.
See, that's the problem. My hips hurt because I do kettlebell.
That makes sense too. We can get past that point.
Getting up and out of my chair has kind of been like,
Oh,
I did this to myself.
there's a bit of a back and forth with getting in shape.
So, German, what have you been up to? I heard you went somewhere or something.
Yeah, no big deal. About 3 weeks ago, I pre-posted all these podcasts for the last 3 weeks because I was in Scotland for 16 days. And it just overlapped over
folks.
three.
The last 3 episodes have been a lie.
Exactly. But yeah, for my honeymoon with the wife, we went to Scotland and we drove around the entire country. There's a thing there called I think it's the DC or AC 500. I forgot now, but it's where it's like an actual route they have signs for across the whole country, but that goes the opposite direction. So we went from Glasgow to Edinburgh and then straight up and around the entire country through the Highlands. And went to Inverness to see the Loch Ness Monster. And we went to all these different places, Ullapool, and these beautiful locations, driving on these 1-lane roads. We rented a car. And I'm going to be going on to not the Sci-Fi Waffle. It's the the Cosmic Pizza podcast.
Pizza. I know there's a lot to keep track of with those guys.
Well, we're going on there soon because of their nice British hosts as well. They want to hear my experience, and me and Jolie are going to go on the show and talk about what it was like being in the UK and just experiencing the difference in culture. And I'm sure there's a big difference in culture just from England to Scotland as well, because it's, different countries. But it was.
Yeah, but it's probably like, the US and Canada.
Yeah, it shares a lot of similarities. I'm sure.
One is just the other's hat.
Yeah, exactly. Biggest surprise, though, is that just there's so few people in that country. And actually, I just read something before I left that Scotland is actually one of the best places to go, they said, for if there's an apocalypse or like a zombie apocalypse or something, because there's so much open, fertile land with nobody on it that you'd be really safe to go there in droves. People could go there and they'd still have tons of space. There was more sheep than people, it seemed like. There were sheep everywhere. They're like squirrels here. It was just sheep everywhere.
Squirrels here. They're on my goddamn lawn in the morning.
Exactly. They were crossing the street. They were just breaking through fences. And we had to go to these little burial mounds that were in this one area. They were ancient, like from thousands of years ago. But they're in this line across this huge property. And so we're walking through some of the grass and we're like, oh my God, there was just poop everywhere. That's what they don't think about with the sheep. They got to take a shit somewhere. So like hundreds of sheep were just shitting all over this like giant field that looked beautiful from far away. But when you get closer, there's just different size poop all over the place. It's like a minefield walking through there. So that was fun. But other than that, it was just mostly just so much beautiful places to see. And it was off season, so there wasn't tons of tourists. A lot of broken down castles, and I have a great travel buddy. She was my navigator the whole time. She was, looking at maps and giving me the history of castles we passed by. Like, I don't even know there's a castle there. What's that castle all about?
This is your wife, right?
My wife, yes, yeah.
Okay, cool. You just referred to as a great travel buddy, and I was like, was there a third individual? No. I just needed to understand.
And we had gotten this like mobile, basically hotspot for our car. So most places it worked. And so she would have the internet where we went. How did
your online guide work out? I know that you were trying it out.
Oh, it was fantastic. It guided our whole thing. Secret Scotland, that it was this thing. We paid like $30 for his PDF because of the length of the trip we wanted to go on. You kind of tell them what kind of places you want to see, and it makes this guide for you. And we stayed at most of the B&Bs it recommended. They were all pretty much fantastic. Most places were real B&Bs. So you wake up, you have breakfast in this dining area and these old houses, with, Scottish people who run them, and they were able to tell us stuff more about the locations. And, I had so much.
Were the Scottish locals difficult to understand?
Surprisingly not, because I think what we found out is probably some of the thickest accents are in the most south and the most north of the country. And since we didn't get to the lowlands or to the very top, which is near more Scandinavian countries, that's where the accents get nuts. And so we could understand everybody pretty much perfectly. We were very lucky, because I was scared of that too, because I've met some Scottish people like on a cruise once, and I couldn't understand.
I remember you coming on and doing the impression here.
And I was like, what the hell is he saying? I couldn't understand a word he was saying. So I was so fortunate that everyone we met was just completely easy to understand, like beautiful Scottish accents that were really easy to understand. But so much history, and we looked at a lot of the Outlander locations from the TV show, because we've been watching that, and they
what
were
about Highlander.
Huh?
What about Highlander?
We saw the castle that was in the movie Highlander. Actually, we have pictures in front of it, which is pretty cool.
Glorious son of a bitch. Can there be only one?
There can be only one. But we were watching episodes of Outlander before we go see that building the very next day, which is pretty cool.
Wow, that's pretty slick.
And they were filming there 6 weeks before we arrived. So they had just stopped filming not too long ago. So it was great timing. But yeah, it was just a really fun time. Nothing went wrong. I couldn't believe it. Flights weren't canceled or delayed. And the whole trip was pretty magical. We have lots of pictures.
Glorious.
Yeah, it's pretty glorious.
But then you came back to some other major life event.
Yeah, and now we're moving. And so I'm moving to a nice big old house. Thankfully, we have so much crap in this small house that we're growing out of it. And we want to have kids someday. So we want to make sure we have a place that can fit some children. So we're very fortunate. But that's been very busy ever since to get that all done. And then on top of all that, I had to watch 7 Guardians of the Tomb. So what a life I'm leading.
What do you mean had to watch? What a reward.
Had the opportunity to watch this.
Welcome back to America.
Exactly. So that's pretty much all I've been up to. Not too much. And I think that brings us some nerdy news.
It's time for Nerdy News.
All right, this week, the cheeky name for my cheeky story is Japanese Tits Say It All.
Oh, God.
That's right. Those marvelous little birds, the Japanese tit, may be the first non-primates. I was caught up in my own joke. Non-primates to communicate to each other using gestures. In mated pairs, it's been observed that they fly up to a nest together, they stop, one of them flutters their wings in a specific way, and more often than not, the other one enters the nest first. Well, Toshitaka Suzuki, a biologist at the University of Tokyo, believes that this could be the first symbolic gesture amongst animals. Some other animals do use gestures, but it is mostly to get attention or to point towards something. This would represent a complex social interaction using a gesture, which really hasn't been seen before in anything other than primates.
Wow.
They observed 32 nest visitations of mated pairs, and more often than not, it's actually the lady who flutters and the man goes in first. Those lady tits know how to be real gentlemen, you know.
Jesus.
I'm overly proud of this one because it's not dirty. It's about Japanese tits. This complex communication includes a sender, a receiver, and a specific goal, and is truly one of a kind for now, at least. And that is Japanese Tits Say It All.
Oh, God. I had no idea that existed, but there's a whole list of birds that have dirty names. So it's a thing.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
The blue-footed booby right there. I mean, come on.
Yeah, like we didn't make this up, biologists, just sad, lonely men made up these names.
And there was
I'm just here to giggle about them.
A female biologist sitting right next to him, just shaking her head. Like, oh, God,
yeah,
not
I
again.
named that tit.
Well, I think it takes us to our main segment.
7 Guardians of the Tomb. Woo! This was a thing. This was a weird thing. All right. So we started with like kind of a series of incoherent flashbacks featuring Kelsey Grammer, who plays a character named Mason, a businessman, is watching 2 men make a discovery of some sort in a remote, dim location. They are seemingly attacked by vicious spiders, but one is able to send a distress call before being overtaken. Mason recruits Gia, who's one of the men's sisters, to go find her missing brother. And thank God, Gia is a venomous animal and dangerous animal expert or something. It's very vague. They head to the last known location and meet a motley crew that Mason's hired, including multiple experts on random things and a discount Indiana Jones played by Kellen Lutz. They find dead cattle in a creepy webbed over house and a baby bassinet covered in spider webs. Chen, who is an expert on, I guess, plot and exposition.
Yes.
Because every time they get stuck anywhere, he just knows everything they need to know. He gets bitten. Gia gives him just conveniently, they brought anti-venom, but she gives him a dose and it's not strong enough, and she has to double the dose just to stop it. The spiders are funnel webs, but those are from Australia, aren't they? Well, we'll talk about that later. The group falls through the floor and finds themselves in some sort of ruined temple below. They find people buried in the walls and ancient glyphs. They have to make their way deeper and deeper into the temple, solving or basically stumbling into solutions for discount National Treasure escape rooms. Spiders pick a few of them off, but thank God Chen is an expert on everything and every part of this tomb that no one has ever been in. Thank God Chen is there to save this film.
Good thing they saved him. Otherwise, they would have been screwed.
Doesn't do crap. Chen is the real hero of this movie, by the way. It turns out that an ancient emperor brought back like tons and tons of funnel web spiders from Australia to breed them, because one time a year they give out a little bit of elixir that gives eternal life. But the spiders overtook the emperor's tomb after his death. Mason finds a bottle of the potion and immediately leaves the others to die. And apparently it's also said that the spider's poison is making him crazy. He's not really a bad guy. It's just making him nuts. They find Gia's brother alive somehow. And then we see Mama Spider, who's this big dog-sized spider. And the final exit is through her egg chamber. But Mason blocks their way. He's eventually overtaken and eaten by spiders. The group struggles to escape one final puzzle. The room catches ablaze, and with the temple crashing down around them, the group narrowly escapes, and a pillar crushes the mama spider as her eggs burn in the background. And they live happily ever after.
Three of them.
Jarman, what did you think about this movie? 7 Guardians of the Tomb.
Oh boy. Well, overall, it felt like one of those sci-fi original movies.
It did.
And just but taking itself way too seriously. So that's not a good combination, because it's almost better when there's not taking themselves too serious, like a Sharknado of sorts. It felt, it had that vibe to it for sure. I see why most advertisements now for it just says Guardians of the Tomb, not 7 Guardians of the Tomb, because that didn't really make any sense. It's like there's 7 of them, I guess, on the adventure.
Of anything, at any point. I thought maybe there would be 7 rooms or something, but even that didn't make sense.
There's hundreds of spiders. There's only 2 biggish ones. None of that makes any sense.
The male spider and then the mama spider, yeah.
Yeah, and there were 7 of them, I think, going in the tomb. But they're not the Guardians of the Tomb. The spiders are. So it didn't make any sense.
Maybe it's just something that didn't translate well into English.
Maybe.
That being said, this was also co-released in Australia, and they speak English there. So I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. So I guess we can go back and forth, if you think, with things we liked. So I think the locations were beautiful, and the sets were very well done.
I can get aboard with it. Production design was good.
Yeah. A very pretty production design. They spent a lot of time on it. Like even like the house that they were in, all these little details and stuff around the house. And I thought that was very well done. Yeah. What about you? One good thing.
I'll agree with that. And I will agree that the spider CGI was good about 50% of the time.
Oh, that's very
50%
generous.
of the time it was really good. And the other 50% of the time it was incredibly bad. And I don't know why there was such a differentiation, but there were some shots where I was like, oh, okay, cool. This feels good. And the next one was like, wait, what? Why was that spider just shiny?
Yeah, maybe when it was like zoomed out, it was a little better. But when they got
for all you know, they had 2 different studios providing CGI shots, and one of them got it and the other one didn't. Like that kind of crap happens all the time.
One was in Australia, one was in China. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a China co-production. Other thing I liked was I actually really liked the Australian guy, the comic relief dude.
Oh, yeah.
I was surprised, but his inappropriate jokes, they actually landed for me. I thought they were actually pretty funny. So I was like, hey, this guy, that writing was actually pretty snappy, whoever did that part.
I do like that they gave the redhead to be like the subject of his attention and they murdered her.
Yeah.
She was the first to go. Like, I was totally okay with that.
Yeah, that was sad.
And I don't know. There's not a ton good to say about this movie. This movie had some major issues.
Well, one more thing that I liked was I did like the beginning sequence. It made me believe there was going to be a better movie coming with the animations describing like the ancient history, what was going on a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And the flashback scenes with the emperor were pretty cool. So I'll give it that. The animation was pretty cool, but then they didn't really use it for a good movie. So
True. And I will give it to them in that the concept was at least interesting.
Yes.
In that, like, ancient China, this one emperor sailed to a far off mystical land where the locals, Aborigines, told them about the spiders that, okay, cool. I can kind of get on board with that.
Yeah.
Because it's even a little feasible in that regard.
And I like the whole concept of if you touch the lines of web that the spiders have made, it acts like a kind of homing beacon and they can find you. That was kind of a cool idea. So I like that. That was neat.
All right. So some things I struggled with. The dialogue was just incredibly bad.
Oh yeah.
And not just bad, like simple bad. And I think it's because the anticipation was they were going to end up dubbing it into a bunch of different languages or dialects. And so because of that, I think they kept the dialogue simple and direct to make that easier.
That's possible. It was really stilted and really unnatural feeling.
And yeah, and most people's lines are like 4 words long. Like, listen to the movie. I would bet that there are a dozen lines or less that are more than 5 words long.
And probably because those 2 main Chinese actors that were the brother and sister probably don't speak a lot of English, I would imagine.
But even Kelsey, you have someone like Kelsey Grammer, like in there. And you don't use him to like produce beautiful dialogue. His lines were extra like dumbfoundingly short.
And they were like overdubbed or something too. They sounded really weird for the first half of the movie. Like,
it's your brother. He is missing. What? You come to tell me this? I'm sorry. I had to. I was like, what?
Yeah. And he was speaking in this really gruff tone that either was a different actor doing the voiceover or it was him doing a really weird voice for like half the movie. It was really strange.
Yeah. So you would think Kelsey Grammer would make this movie better, and unfortunately it does not happen. And then Kellen Lutz comes along, and not only is it the same issue, the bad writing that has to then produce a romance additionally. Yeah. This terrible writing has to produce a romance. But Kellen Lutz's character, I'm not kidding when I say Chen is the real hero of the movie. Even Kellen Lutz's character didn't do a ton of like the strong guy Indiana Jones stuff.
Yeah, and he didn't do much saving. He was a survival expert, but he didn't save anybody.
Right. If he was a survival expert and the Indiana Jones guy bailing the nerdy scholar out repeatedly, that'd be one thing. But like even that didn't happen. Chen just saved them over and over and over again.
Or the Gia saved them sometimes too. Yeah, like, and he did nothing. He was scared of spiders. He didn't have any his medical training was a joke, and like he didn't do anything. And we had him on the show previously in our Hercules Copycat
that is
Cinema.
Still to this day, I think one of my favorite episodes of ours.
Was it?
Yeah. So between all those factors, forgettable music, hard to tell if the acting was bad, to be quite honest, because the dialogue was so bad. There's no way to tell.
Yeah. And one big thing that stuck out for me was the constant recapping and flashbacking of things they just told us 10 minutes ago. Like they didn't trust the audience to remember anything. Like they were recapping. I was like, why are they flashing back to that? We just saw that. It
was one thing with the Emperor, but the ones that got me were the ones where Kelsey Grammer sitting at like an iMac.
Yeah.
And they kept revealing more about what happened to her brother that he hadn't told her, but they did it through those flashbacks. It was so bad.
Yeah. It was like the time was weird. Like kept going back and forth. Like, why are they doing this? It's so disjointed. It was just.
How did he get back to his iMac?
Why do we care about him in front of his iMac?
Product placement, man. Product placement.
Yeah, and I put the CGI, but you're right. There were some shots that were good, and
They were.
but
They
then a lot of them
genuinely
were
were.
pretty bad. And the spiders themselves weren't consistent. They were like, sometimes they'd attack, sometimes they'd just stay back for no apparent reason. And so they weren't
Well, yeah,
really.
they're talking about these aren't like funnel webs that wait for their prey to come by. These are attacking us. And it was just them walking forward going like hissing with their teeth out, walking slowly at them. I was like, well, that's intimidating, surely. But
like sometimes they jump all over
either
them.
of them right now.
And yeah, other times they just let them be and just not attack them. I didn't really understand what the rhyme or reason was for that. It just made no sense. So they weren't really threatening for that reason.
So yeah, I don't. There for me, and I love big campy creature feature movies like this.
Me too.
I love National Treasure kind of crap.
Critters.
I love Indiana Jones. I should have liked this. This was really bad, guys.
Yeah, it wasn't
really
a Nutcracker bad, but it was bad.
It wasn't Nutcracker bad. I didn't have to sit through it in multiple sittings. And I at least found it free. Someone decided that this needed to be somewhere.
And there were some scenes like that were supposed to be adventurous, like thrilling scenes, but they just took so long that I did put it in like 1.5 speed a couple times because like, all right, just get past this obstacle. Cool. Get to the dialogue. Okay, I'll stop it and slow it down again because it was just boring. So yeah, not the best. Not the best. Go see Sting instead.
Yeah, go see Sting.
So I got a little bit for Steve.
Ooh, I'm excited.
It's called Maddening Guardians and Liberating Tombs. And you'll notice the words mad and lib are in that title.
Mad Lib.
That's right.
I see what you did there.
So we're going to do a little Mad Lib here, and Steven's going to give me some words, and we're going to do what he just did for us and give the plot of this movie, but now it's going to be very different with the Mad Lib that Steven creates. So give me a plural profession.
Trash men?
Sure. All right. A type of building.
A mausoleum.
Oh, okay. I can't spell mausoleum.
That's right. I'm picking words I know you can't spell.
Country.
Kuwait.
I can spell that one. An adjective.
Which one's that?
This describing word.
Describing word. Quickly.
Okay. Another adjective.
Sharply.
I'm going to put that to quick and sharp just for the sake of it fitting in better. A
Fair.
plural animal.
Kangaroos.
Okay. An activity.
Playing hopscotch.
Okay. And an action.
Fishing. Is that what you're looking for?
It's more of an activity. It's more like kind of action.
Sneeze. Does that work?
Yeah, it should work.
Okay.
An object.
Fruit basket.
Okay. Another object.
A baby bottle.
Baby bottle. Okay. And then another action.
Lick.
Okay. Now we have the full story of Guardians of the Tomb. Here we go. Guardians of the Tomb follows a group of trash men who stumble upon an ancient mausoleum in the Kuwait outback. Inside, they awaken quick, sharp kangaroos, turning their archaeological hopscotch game into a fight for survival.
I would already rather watch this movie.
As the kangaroos wreak havoc, the trash men must sneeze through the mausoleum's treacherous fruit baskets and baby bottles while battling the quick, sharp horrors. It's a race against time as they try to lick the mausoleum before becoming kangaroo snacks. Moral of the story, ancient mausoleums and quick, sharp kangaroos don't mix well, folks.
That's true. That was the lesson of this movie as well.
Gotta watch out for them quick, sharp kangaroos.
Quick, sharp kangaroos. Yeah, pointy tails.
They know what they're doing. They're sharp. All right, so that brings us to some radical recommends.
If you have the means, I highly recommend picking one up.
What do you recommend I do?
I recommend pleasant.
All right. Well, this week my radical recommend is one that I'm not the only person talking about it. And it's X-Men 97 on Disney Plus. If you grew up like me with the animated X-Men, I think from 94 to 97, I think is when it ran. You remember these fondly.
Oh, yeah.
And this follows the same attitude, tone, even animation style, and a good chunk of the original voice cast of the X-Men animated series you know and love. Picks up the story basically right where it left off, and it's awesome. It's so good. It's incredibly good.
Had you remembered much of the story from the original?
I had to watch a couple recaps because I did watch all of them at some point, but we're talking 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So I watched like a big recap to help me get kind of caught up mentally. But it's just exceptional. It's really good. And the best part is that Joyce and Dilly like it. And so not only have we been watching them together, but then they've been asking to watch the old one.
Nice.
Which I've tried to get them to watch before and they wouldn't do it. But now they will. So my radical recommend is X-Men 97. If you haven't checked it out, I recommend it very highly to scratch that nostalgia itch. That one right between your shoulder blades you can't reach real good.
It's funny because I just got a message out of the blue from a friend of ours from high school who went by Kai at the time to make it easier for white folks. But apparently all this time his real name has been Ka. That's how he pronounces it. But anyways, he messaged me saying, have you seen it? And I was like, what? Fallout? The new Star Trek? Because I see him post about those shows. He's like, no, X-Men 97. I'm like, no, I haven't seen it. Not yet.
Well,
so,
I'm with Ka on this one. You got to check it out.
Yeah, it's apparently awesome. Apparently, the most recent episode was mind-blowing and really tearjerker. So that's all I've heard.
I'm one episode behind. God damn it.
So no spoilers, but
So
apparently. All right, we'll have to check that out. So that brings us to some trailer reviews. All right, so this week we got, there's a CinemaCon happening right now, which is releasing a lot of trailers, some that they aren't showing to the public yet, but one they did release was the Joker sequel from the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, Folie. I don't know how to pronounce that properly. It's Joker 2, basically. So, Steve, what do you think of this trailer?
I don't know. This was a very difficult trailer for me because it didn't give us anything. Which, mind you, probably a good thing to not tip your hand too much this early. But all we have is that like the Joker is in some sort of asylum or penitentiary. We're going to assume it's Arkham because they showed the word Arkham later on in the trailer. He meets another woman who is there, who is played by Lady Gaga, which is in itself like, okay, why? Were there no full-time actresses available?
She's done a lot of acting nowadays, so she's been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, sure. But what's she most known for?
Well, she did a really big thing in that movie she was just in with Bradley Cooper. What's it called? Stars Born.
Like 5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason she's in this. And we think she's playing Harley Quinn.
Yeah, pretty much.
The origin story would be very different than what would be most of the comics, but who cares at this point?
Because in the cartoon where Harley Quinn first appeared, she was a nurse there who then falls in love with Joker, right? And becomes crazy herself.
And then in the one, I don't know about that. I know in the like Jared Leto verse, I think she was a psychiatrist or psychologist.
Right. I think they uploaded her or upgraded her from psychiatrist to nurse, or maybe she was always a psychiatrist in the cartoon. I can't remember.
Or they've reset the universe so many times it could be any number of things.
Exactly.
And they break out and go on a crime spree, I guess. At one point, you see him being chased by other people in clown costumes. Who knows what that's about? I don't know.
I don't think
there's no plot in what I saw.
I don't think it needed a sequel. I think I didn't really enjoy the first one that much. I thought it was interesting, but it was like derivative of other movies and didn't fit in any universe that's currently established. So it's just like, we're just going to put a middle finger up to everything going on with DC and just make this movie for no reason. And just kind of like, okay.
Look, but for the flip, play the other side of the coin in the issue that not only DC, but Marvel has very much suffered from is throwaway villains.
Yeah.
One and done villains. And the beautiful thing about comic book villains is that most of them good ones come back over and over again.
Yeah.
So maybe this is them doing the right thing for once.
But he won't be in any other connected universe, so it doesn't really matter. It's just like...
As of this moment.
But the timeline doesn't fit because it's like in the 70s or something.
It doesn't matter. If this is the one thing that they've made that works, why wouldn't they try to capitalize on that?
Yeah, I guess.
If this is the one thing.
But it's like he's missing his Batman. And I don't think this version of Joker will ever get a Batman because it's just focused on him and it's Batman's still like a kid at this point. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like what's the point in watching it? I guess that's maybe a symptom of these interconnected universes training my brain. There has to be some kind of follow-up continuously. And I don't think we're going to get that with this character. So it's just like, what's the point? But
we didn't think we were going to get this sequel either.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. Don't discount it. If it's working, someone with money will go, okay, how do I make this more money?
Because we have the Robert Pattinson Batman. We got the DCU doing whatever the hell they're going to do with Batman. So, and
then not only that, isn't what's his face getting his own show or has his own show?
Who? Oh, the Penguin. Yeah.
Yeah, Penguin.
He's
played by
Colin Farrell with his
Colin
Mac
Farrell
show.
in crazy makeup. Yeah. So like, who knows?
Yeah.
I'd say don't discount it.
It looks pretty. It looks like it's well shot.
In a long time. So I'm willing to give them a chance to do it.
I like Lady Gaga as an actress, so I'm fine with that. Star is Born was fantastic. She was great in American Horror Story. I think she's fun to watch, so I'm down for it.
All right, I have a Lady Gaga story.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So it was at Apple's big Welcome to Campus event when we opened up the new Apple Park campus, and everyone was finally moved in, and they threw like a big bash. Drinks and food and booze, extra security all over the place. And the thing was Lady Gaga was going to perform.
What?
Apple got Lady Gaga to perform at Apple Park.
Oh my gosh.
So they erected this huge rainbow stage and lights and everything. And she came out, and we were not the crowd that she was used to.
Mm-hmm.
She's used to crazed Lady Gaga fans.
Yeah.
Who paid incredible amounts of money for tickets and are so hyped up that they scream and they dance and they push and they sing. And that is not the crowd at Apple. Not even a little bit.
Tech nerds.
A bunch of tech nerds. Some of which are big fans, but most of us are like there because it's a party at work and there's free booze and food. Anyone could be on that stage and we would be there.
It's Kenny Loggins.
But at one point she was like, all right, let me hear you make some noise. And the response from the crowd was like, yeah, like, we'll say 3 out of 10 at best.
We have to be here.
Yeah. She got legitimately like frustrated with the crowd. She was like, I said, let me hear some fucking noise. Like, but we were clearly not the crowd she wanted.
I never heard about this.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't talk about work stuff too much when I still worked there, but now it's like, yeah, whatever.
You still work there now.
I still work at the company, but I don't work at Apple Park.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
We had some big numbers over the years. We had Pharrell come and perform at a beer bash.
All right.
Ziggy Marley, Bob Marley's son, performed at the Earth Day beer bash, which happened to be on 420 that year.
Appropriate.
And I remember he made a weed joke and Tim basically grabbed the mic.
Oh. Come on, Tim. Relax.
He knew he threw a party with Ziggy Marley on 420. That's all I'm saying.
I mean,
he knew that was what was happening.
Half of his employees are high at that moment. So
that moment,
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't know that.
So what do I give this trailer? I'm going to give this Raul Julia. He's finally had it. He can't take it anymore. He drives his used Toyota Tercel down to the asylum. He very mundanely goes in. I would like to be committed. They say, of course. So yeah, paperwork. And they sit him in a room and he fills out a bunch of paperwork. He meets with a doctor and they finally escort him in. They take his shoes. They give him pants he can't hang himself with, all that standard stuff. And he goes in and they're like, Mr. Julia, right this way. And this will be your group that you'll do therapy with. And he walks in and it's 5 Gary Buseys. Like, hey, Raul, you made it. It's my birthday. No, it's my birthday. I said it's my fucking birthday.
Oh, God.
That's right. Well, Julia knows that he lost it.
He's in the right place then.
He's in the right place because he knows he lost it.
I'm going to rate this trailer. Raul Julia coming home from work, a long day on a shoot. And he gets home and he can't find Gary. He's like, where's Gary? And he gets in the living room and he sees Gary. He's blocked by, the couch, but he can see him like he's just covered in clown makeup. And he's like, oh, look out, the Joker. And he's like, oh, God, it's not Halloween. What are you doing? And he stands all the way up and he sees he's wearing no pants and he's just got his penis tucked between his legs like the guy from Silence of the Lambs. He's like,
he's going full Buffalo Bill.
He's like, why are you doing that? The Joker doesn't do that. He's like, oh, it's not part of the costume. That's just my new hobby.
Wild horses.
So I think that's that. And after that happens, that's when he goes to the asylum and in your story. Yeah. So
that's right.
So I think that brings us to the end of the episode, doesn't it, Steve?
All right. Well, join us again next week. Coming up, we have a genuinely very special episode.
Absolutely.
I say that a lot, and I always say I'm not lying to you, but I want you to know all those other times I was also lying to you. This is real, folks. From the co-creators of the Blair Witch Project comes the new podcast, Black Velvet Fairies. It follows Lucy as she journeys in her journey after inheriting these 4 black velvet paintings from her deceased grandmother. Lucy investigates her family history. She's drawn to this dark and dangerous world of fairies, gets disturbing dreams, unexplained encounters, and it's really I've listened to 4 episodes so far, and it's really a unique blend of the fantasy and supernatural. And we are lucky enough to have executive creative director Greg Hale and voice actors Gretchen Lodge and Chris Osborne joining us to talk about this new production, Black Velvet Fairies.
It should be a lot of fun. Right up our alley, too, with the paranormal and the nerdy stuff and
podcasting. It checks all the boxes.
Voice actors.
It should check all of your boxes, too. So join us for that. It's going to be crazy. We have some actual famous guests coming on.
Yeah, and Orlando people. We got the director, Greg Hale's from Orlando, just like we are. So we can chat about that too.
Yeah, that's right. So come on back and join us for that. We will be your nerdy co-hosts if you come on back and be our nerdy audience. And thanks again, Internet.
Stay nerdy, my friends.
Thanks for listening to A Play on Nerds. Feel free to email feedback at aplayonnerds.com with all your questions or comments.
Shoot us a message on Facebook or Twitter and earn yourself a sweet shout out on the show.
Review us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts so even more nerds can find us. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, we aren't picky.
Check out our entire back catalog and other offerings at aplayonnerds.com.
And how?